Hello and welcome to the second episode of this Investor Education and Awareness Initiative of Aditya Birla Mutual Fund in association with your favorite personal finance magazine, Outlook Money. I am Vishwa. I'm back as your host for the day. We all know that the unprecedented global crisis that we are going through has impacted not only the global and national economies, but also each household's and individual's personal finance matters. In these unique times, there is a need to reinvent one's approach to personal finance planning, be it for short term goals or long term ones. Today, for this webinar, our focus is on one of the biggest long term goals that every working individual plans for. We are talking about retirement planning, and to help our viewers find that right approach towards planning for their retirement in good times as well as troubled ones, we have with us some eminent personalities with extensive experience and expertise to talk on roadmap to retirement planning, our topic for the day. Our first guest is Mr. K.S. Rao, Head Investor Education and Distribution Development, Aditya Birla Sun Life Asset Management Company Limited. Mr. Rao, an alumnus of IIM Calcutta, has spent over 2 decades in the mutual fund industry, and in his current role, he leads his organization's efforts towards investor education and distribution development. We are also joined by Mr. Amit Trivedi, author, speaker, trainer, and blogger with over 26 years of professional experience in capital markets. As a trainer, he has trained over 83,000 participants through almost 1,300 workshops across 130 different locations across the country. He has written several books on personal finance, including Riding the Roller Coaster and Personal Finance Lessons from the ICU. Both Mr. Rao and Mr. Trivedi have done extensive work in area of investor education. Today, we are also joined by Ms. Kiran Telang, a certified financial planner who is registered as an investment advisor with SEBI. She is also a founder member of the Financial Planners Guild in India. A subject expert on personal finance, Ms. Telang has also authored a book on retirement called Mindful Retirement. So she would be a valuable guest in our panel to talk on lessons on retirement. We also have with us Mr. P.V. Subramaniam, a chartered accountant who also runs a blog which has 1 million visitors. In his first career innings, he worked as an auditor, an equity broker, a mutual fund advisor, and a corporate finance advisor. Now, in his second innings, he is a trainer, educator, and author. He also has authored a book on retirement planning called Retire Rich. So let's get straight into it. My first question is for Mr. K.S. Rao. My question is that everybody plans for their retirement. Somebody starts early, somebody starts late. So when is the right time to plan for one's retirement? When should one start planning for retirement? And how soon is too soon? And how late is too late for people working individuals?
Hi, good morning, Vishal, and all friends. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here. Thanks, Outlook Money, for this webinar. Indeed, we are. It is one goal we all on the panelists we are here look forward for everyone, every Indian to plan for their retirement and make their retirement not only rich but mindful and of course marketful. The three authors who are with me today, they will brief us. I think Vishal, when it comes to retirement. There are many financial goals we plan for. We plan for it. It could be a child education. It could be a buying a house or buying a car or going on a vacation. But one goal is not that we need to set, but it is already set for us. Are we planning it right? All that what we need to do is retirement is going to happen for us at a time. It's like you can't like it may be early, it may be late, but you need to plan for it. And retirement goal is already set for you. You don't need to set, but how you need to plan for it and how you need to go. And the question is how early is too early, or how is it the late? I mean, it is a question is like early you start. You can make all the difference to get a retirement corpus, which can be with a smaller amount, you can plan really well. But unfortunately, what happens is most of us, this is in the Stephen Covey, in his book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he mentions there are certain things which are urgent but not important. There are certain things important but not urgent. And retirement is one such goal which is important but not urgent. And since it is not urgent, we tend to postpone, we tend to ignore, and suddenly one day retirement happens and we feel, oh my God, I have not done anything. And this is whole purpose is one need to plan retirement as early as possible. And it is like, we do organize sessions for the final year grads and the first year employed guys, at their induction programs. This is the module called My First Paycheck. There we talk to them. It's like, it's the time for you to start your retirement planning from the day one you are earning your first paycheck, or first, first year earnings. You need to start so that you can make your plan very thoroughly. And it's power of compounding which works for you. It's like, even a 5,000 rupees a month, for somebody who starts at 25 years and he invests for 30 years, like, and which can become a huge corpus almost at 1.8 crores. And a 5 years delay of the same will become half of that money. It's around 95, 96 lakhs. Another 5 years delay means, you start at 35, then it will become 40. I mean, one third of the corpus. That's where one need to start as early as possible, and at the cost of other goals. Don't postpone your retirement planning. Let it be, whether it's whatever the corpus you are looking at, you need to look. You need to start early. I'm sure Subra can add a lot of value how somebody can retire rich on this space.
Right. Thank you for the insightful answer. I have a follow-up question. You mentioned the importance of starting early and how it can help in, having a larger corpus for your retirement. Now, it's a very practical problem that a lot of young individuals face. They start saving when they start their career, but for some urgent need, or some plans or some other goal that comes along the way, an unexpected goal or even sometimes expected one, they use a part of that corpus or the whole of that corpus, and they have to start all over again. So any advice for such individuals, how they can meet their needs also, and at the same time have enough for the retirement?
That's a fantastic question, Vishav, and it's a practical problem for many. Even, I keep traveling. Not only the youngsters, like even the government employees, even our Fauji boys. I had a privilege to go to the this cantonments and do a program for the Faujis. It's called a Fauji Nivesh. Even they withdraw their money, their provident fund money for their short-term needs. I think, when you plan for your short-term ride, this can be a long-term goal. Don't try to dip into this savings kitty which you have planned for your retirement, which can be a sacrosanct. You manage that and you keep that kitty aside. Maybe, 10% of your money if you are saving for retirement. Please don't touch that. Psychologically in your mind, you can make sure that you are earning 90%. Other 10% is gone for your retirement. And today retirement is going to be a very, very crucial. It's like when my father retired for the government, like government has a pension plan and he could get till the time of his death. But for somebody today, it's like, no, there is nothing called social security, nothing called pension. In fact, my father jokingly used to tell me, in the private sector, you will not have a pension, but you have a tension. And one need to get away to that tension. You need to plan for your own pension.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for your answer. Next, I move on to Mr. Lang. We know the importance of retirement planning, but where to start, how to start planning for your retirement. It's a question that a lot of people face. So, is it a step-by-step process? If so, can you help our viewers get familiar with some of these steps? A to-do list of sorts, that things to do when you are planning for retirement.
Let me take this in two parts. So, if you look at retirement as the biggest goal, biggest financial goal that you will have in your life, there are two parts to it. The first part is when you're earning through either your job or your profession or your business. That is when the income keeps coming in. So, that is the phase where you can actually accumulate. The second phase is when you actually retire and that income stops coming. And the second part is when you start using your investment corpus as a income drawing, fund. So from where the income has to come. So that is the distribution phase. So for people who are just starting off in their careers, or who are still in the earning phase, it is necessary that they start saving very early, and they start as saving as much as they can. The second part to it will be that saving itself is not enough. You need to invest wisely. For example, if somebody is say 25 years old, so this person will have very low liabilities. I mean, he will not have many loans to begin with. He will have lower responsibilities because he's probably not yet started a family. So in that scenario, the risk to his money is very low. So he can take exposure to things like equity, which are volatile and riskier in nature, and he can start building his corpus. Now, as you approach retirement, say middle age, say 45 or something, where your kids are going to be going off to college, where your responsibilities are higher, you need to be aware that there could be a chance that you will pull out money from things that you've saved for your retirement. So that is a danger zone, I would say, because a lot of people give priority to kids' education and they're settling in more than their own retirement. So that could be an important point. And third thing is, as you approach retirement, in most cases, it is advisable to probably, pare down your equity exposure, because you have built a nest egg, say you build a few crore rupees by the time you retire. And if everything is in equity and the equity market crashes, you might lose that accumulated wealth, and it will take a long time for you to come back to the same level. So while one size does not fit all, this is the most generic thing that we have seen, that you need to be a little more careful when you have accumulated your corpus.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned that saving is not enough. You also have to invest wisely. And Mr. Subramaniam, you have written a book called Retire Rich. So I think investing wisely would be one of the ways to retire rich. But my question is, how can one retire rich, and how much of a corpus one should have in order to do that? So can you suggest us?
So thanks, Vishal. So first of all, richness is a state of mind. So really, one can't put a number and say at this number you're rich. At some number you feel rich, and for everybody the figure could be different. For somebody born in a very rich family, 5 crores may not mean anything, and for somebody else, 50 lakhs could mean feels very rich. So we'll not get into that. But my book title is "Retire Rich, Invest Rupees 40 a Day." That is obviously aimed at the 22-year-old, because if you go and tell the 22-year-old invest 5,000 rupees a month, he is not perhaps looking at investing that much, because his priorities are obviously motorcycle and car and girlfriend and travel. He will not prioritize for retirement, and I mean that's the norm, right? So he should start early. In fact, if you ask me, if an 18-year-old starts investing 500 rupees a day, and that at 22 he starts investing about 1,500 a month, and so slowly he starts investing. I meant 500 a month, and then 1,200 a month or 1,300 a month, and keeps jumping it by 10% every year. So 40 a day, then becomes 44 a day, then becomes 48. He keeps doing that, jumping it up. He could reach something like 8-10 crores, and that is going to be partially useful for his retirement, because we have no clue how much money one requires for retirement. We are all guessing. A good number to target internationally has been $1 million. So today, if a person were to retire and he has about 7 crores, that seems to be a decent number. You need not provide for inflation, because I'm assuming the dollar will appreciate to the extent that there is inflation in India and inflation in US. So the gap will be felt in the US dollar appreciation. So after a few years, the dollar may be 90 or 100 or 120. So your investment target will change. But when you're very young, you don't need to bother about how much you require for retirement, as long as you know that you require a number. Because only by the age of 50 or 55, you will be able to estimate exactly how much you need. Even then, we are guessing. But at the age of 22, if you tell the kid some big number, he's not even going to understand it. So just say, okay, 1500 rupees mahine ka dal do, just put 1,500 rupees a month into this dabba. This jabba will become your retirement fund. So that's the way to start, and not have to worry about what rate he will get, what return he will get. That's not something to worry about at this age, because he has to worry about it at his age of 60 or 62, not now.
Right. That's interesting, breaking the whole thing into small parts, and, making it easier to understand for individuals to plan in a very simple fashion. That's interesting. But then even if you save those 1,500 rupees and, put it in that dabba, as you say, that dabba has to be invested somewhere. So, Mr. Trivedi, my next
Uh,
question is for you. What are some attractive investment instruments for saving for retirement? So the money that we are saving, where should we put it? And does one formula work for everyone, or there should be a separate formula for each and every individual for the same goal?
I'm going to give a slightly different answer here because a lot of times when this question is asked to people, does one formula work for everybody? People would say no, it doesn't work for everybody. But I'm going to say it works for everybody. There's only one formula that works in case of retirement planning, and that formula was taught in maybe 6th or 8th standard mathematics class, called the compound interest equation, and that formula works for everybody. Now, what is compound interest equation? Actually, it says the amount you invest multiplied by 1 plus rate of return raised to the power of number of compounding periods. And that formula is where the power of compounding periods, the word power comes there. It's not where the money is invested, but how long the money is the money stays invested. So even if somebody, and then there's something that Subra has also mentioned in his book, where some of the calculations are given, even at 8% also, given sufficient time and given enough incremental investments year after year, one is able to accumulate a sizable corpus. So first of all, does one formula work for everybody? Yes, it's the compound interest equation that works for everybody for longer period. Longer the investment horizon, better it is. Number two, how much you can invest regularly. That's the other equation. And that's where I think Subra has brilliantly broken it down into rupees 40 a day. It's achievable, it's doable. And then keep increasing it. So how much you invest? The question that a lot of people are interested in is where to invest so that the R can be enhanced, the rate of return can be enhanced. The bad news is the moment somebody tries to enhance that R of return, another R significantly goes up, which is the R of risk. So rather than enhancing the return, it's better to focus on how much one can invest and how long one can stay invested. Once that is done, then there is a basket of investments that one can actually look at, and some money can be in equity, some money can be in fixed income. That before going for this long term, because compounding takes time, so you need to stay invested. In order to keep your money invested for that long, you got to take care of your short and medium term needs so that that long term money is not touched, and then only you get the benefit of compounding. So where you invest is less important than how much you can and how long you can.
Right. So how long and how much you can invest. So I come back to Mr. Subramaniam. So 40 rupees a day. Now, does that formula work for everyone?
That formula works for everyone. Like I said, Amit said, one formula which works for everyone is the compounding formula. So the 22-year-old should put his money in equity. The money which is not going to touch for retirement, he should put in equity. And then the most important thing is he keeps on increasing his ability to take risk and the ability to understand risk. What happens at 25 if there is a market fall and he has invested for 3 years? All he has invested is at about 1500. He has invested only about 55,000 rupees, 54,000 rupees. Now that's not too much to lose. So even if he loses 10%, he would come down to maybe 54,000. Whatever he has appreciated, he would lose over a 3-year period. Now, when you're 55 years of age and you lose 10% of your portfolio, that can be a significantly big amount. So what happens is at the age of 22, you start understanding risk. By the time you're 30, you have already experienced one terrible 40% fall and 2, 3, 10% falls, and you've got used to it. So by the time you reach 55, there are two things which compounding does. One is compounds your money. Second, it compounds your risk understanding ability. That also gets enhanced over a 30-year period. So Amit or me or Mr. Rao, Kiran is too young. We have seen all these cycles. So for us, it doesn't matter that this person gira, this person gira. We don't need to bat an eyelid. Younger people will lose their sleep over it, especially on social media, etc. But we can take it more calmly because we've seen everything. Right? So the compounding and the understanding also gets compounded. Right? So compounding works with your money and compounding works with your understanding. That is the benefit of starting early.
Right. That's a very insightful point. I think I've heard for the first time that compounding works in your understanding also. That's a great advice. I come back to Mr. Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, in the last decade, equity markets have delivered poor, single-digit returns, and the interest rates have also dropped to record lows. So, what are some of the investment avenues for retired people to earn, a good return, maybe a double-digit return, without taking a lot of risks?
We are talking about boarding a train that can simultaneously take us to Chennai and Delhi while we are boarding from Mumbai. No, that's not going to happen. You choose either you want to go to Chennai or you want to go to Delhi. So if somebody is looking at a double-digit return, that's not going to come without taking significant risk. And if one is trying to avoid risk, then double-digit return has to be forgotten. We are living in interesting times where, and these are, it's not a play of words, but these are interesting times because the interest rates have come down. But along with that, even the inflation has come down. So what one should be focusing on is the real return, which is the investment return minus the inflation. So to that extent, even now, even after the fall in interest rates, we are still earning positive real rate of return. Of course, I'm talking about pre-tax returns, but anyway, we'll not get into the taxation right now. But even when the returns appear to be low, if the inflation is much lower than the rate of return, then you are better off than when your investment is delivering 14% and the inflation is 15%. Okay, in that case, the real return is negative. So number one is always focus on real rate of return. Number two, of course, number two is focus on real return. Number one is understand the risk and return relationship. Number three, how do you plan your investments is always with the understanding, and as Subra mentioned, that certain ups and downs have to be understood and appreciated. And while Subra maintains that I am old enough, I'm not that old. I only read a little bit of history. So if I go back to around 50 years back, do you know PPF rates in those days were 4.3%? 4.3 on PPF. Today, even in such a low interest rate scenario, we are above 7%. So if you go back and understand history, then putting things in perspective becomes relatively easier. My sincere request once again is please understand the risk reward relationship and don't aim for higher returns at low risk. It's not going to happen.
Right. Now we have talked about when to start, how to start, where to invest. All these questions we have addressed. But even when you are near your retirement life, or even during your retirement life, there are factors like life expectancy, unforeseen medical emergency, inflation. They are said to have huge impact on one's retirement savings. Now, Mr. Rao, this question is for you. How can one counter them while planning for retirement? All these issues.
Okay, very interesting, and this is the most important factor. Vishav, recently I was reading one book. This is a book written by Professor Grattan Linda. She is a professor in London School of Business, and this book is very interesting, which speaks about how the world is changing, and it's a 100 years work life. Means it's our lengthening of the life which is happening, and the kids who are born this year and the COVID year, there is a 90% probability, she has come with the statistics, that they live beyond 100 years. And means that like we are all going to live longer. Then what? And then another statistic which shows our work life is shrinking, and either it could be at one go or it could be various reasons. For example, this retirement. In my society where I stay, there is a pilot from one of the airlines, and he says to me, "पिछले 6 महीने से मैं retire हो गया हूँ." And another 6 months I'll be on retirement. Means there is an intermittent retirement. One has to factor these things into the retirement planning. I'm sure the great planners like Kiran can guide on that part, and then you can look at every 10 years. Like there is another statistics which I can tell. Every 10 years, there's a lifespan of Indians is increasing by 2 to 3 years. For example, in 1900, somebody is retiring. He or she will be living for another 5 years for the retirement or to take the pension, and after that, no more. And there is statistics which I was going through it. 1970, and average Indian was living for 48 years. And now 2020, it is somewhere it is said the woman is living for 78.6 years, and the male is living for 77.2 years. Means again, if you are a male or female, you need to factor for your retirement. And second, you put it very rightly on the inflation, which I think Amit spoke earlier. And inflation are multiple factors to it. There is one is a medical inflation, which is almost at 10%, and your lifestyle inflation. Like even if I am changing my lifestyle by 5% every year extra, which is I need to double my expenditure roughly every 14 years. So you need to factor those things into the system, and then you can plan. And it's and if you keep one thing in mind when you are planning for your retirement, will my money outlast me, or will I outlast my money? If the first one is true, then you are living your life very well. I think this for, two of our great authors. One is on the mindful retirement, which comes in a big way, and there is a moneyful retirement another way. And last but not the least, how you invest it appropriately makes all the difference, which Amit always briefs to us.
Right, and since you talked about mindful retirement, I come to Mr. Lang. You have talked about mindful retirement in your book, which is the title of your book also. What do we understand by mindful retirement, and is it beyond financial concerns? What except financial concerns are important for a good and a mindful retired life?
Uh, so mindfulness, in simple terms, is awareness. So what happens generally when people are busy with their regular routine lives? A lot of things are taken for granted. You're not aware of what you're doing, the decisions that you're making, and so basically you're either living in the past or you're living in the future. You're not living in the present. So what happens is that experience, you are not experiencing it completely because you're not aware of what is happening to you at that moment. So sometimes the memories might turn into regrets and the future might turn into anxieties. So you don't want either of these things to happen. So by living mindfully, by living with full consciousness or full awareness in the moment, you can create happy memories. Your mind will be much calmer, and a calmer mind will be less anxious, and less anxiety means you can make better decisions. So I think overall, being mindful is very important at any stage in life. Now, as far as retirement goes, I would say that retirement is not just an event, though it happens at, say, an age of 55 or 58 or 60. I would say retirement is a phase of life like any other phase, but it might be your longest phase where you are not earning an income from a job or a profession. Now, how do you keep yourself happy and worry free in that phase of your life when probably you have a big past to look at and you have a future which might make you anxious? The decisions that you make in your working life about how happy you are with what you're doing in your job, about how your relationships are there, how your friendships are there, what is your relationship with yourself? These are the factors that you don't really spend time in thinking about. So you need to be balanced while earning money. You also need to be conscious of what are you doing with the rest of your life, because money is necessary, but so are the other things. If you have a lot of money in retirement and you don't have anybody to share your retired life with, there are no relations, there are no friends, you will be sad. And if you don't have health in retirement, I mean, having so much money and having a 5-star hospital bed, I mean, it's not a very happy situation. So there has to be a balance which needs to be created amongst all these things. And that I feel is truly what mindful retirement is.
Right, that's interesting because most people, when they talk about retirement planning, mostly they talk about the corpus that you need to create and how to make a corpus that lasts you throughout your life. It's and something that you can pass on also to your children. But it's interesting that the other factors that you should keep in mind while planning for retirement. In these unprecedented times, in the times of COVID crisis, financial plans of a lot of people have gone for a toss. They have been turned upside down, and is there a need now to revisit one's retirement plan? What are some of the steps that can that people can take to fine tune their plan to adjust for COVID impact on their savings as well as investment? For example, people who may have taken a moratorium now, they will have a longer loan tenure, for example, and there will be other factors also. People may have withdrawn some of their provident fund savings also. So how they can fine tune their their strategy to counter for all these unforeseen circumstances. So, Mr. Trivedi, can you enlighten us about this?
See, first of all, what has happened, I mean, this year 2020 has been something that none of us wished for, none of us could have planned for, and it came as a huge surprise. So, in such a case, the importance of planning comes out really very well. So, first, let's compare it to a cricket match. When test match cricket, when the earlier days of the match and the wicket could be a batting beauty, the batsmen are having a party. But by the time you go onto the fourth or fifth day, the wicket starts turning. This is that turning wicket uh, completely roughed up, and the spinners are turning the ball like anything. So in such a case, the batsman's primary job is not to score at a high rate, but the primary job is to stay on crease, okay, to protect the wicket. So these are times which are survival times. Once you've taken care of the survival, then you can go and hit those boundaries. So if I were to compare that to the subject of financial planning, do you have enough contingency or emergency fund? Because as Mr. Rao also mentioned about the unexpected retirement in certain industries or certain cases, what if something happens to the income earning ability because of the economic downturn? Do you have enough capital to take care of the household expenses? That's number one. Number two, do you have enough insurance? Now, when I'm talking about insurance, I'm starting with the medical insurance, not with life insurance, because a lot of people typically look at life insurance as the first insurance and medical insurance comes in later. To tell you the bitter truth, in case of a claim, uh, in life insurance event, there is one less life to fund for the family, whereas in case of health insurance, there is one life, and that life is costly. So and again, probability of medical insurance claims are much higher than life insurance claims, because that comes only once in a life. To that extent, medical insurance is the priority, then comes the life insurance. So contingency fund, insurance. Third, what do you do with your loans and other such compulsions? So those compulsory expenses have to be provided for. Whereas Reserve Bank of India has come forward and provided moratorium to a lot of people, it still doesn't solve the problem completely, because moratorium only means deferment of the EMIs with interest. So the whole thing gets deferred, and there's an interest to be payable on that as well. So sometime somebody has to pay. Uh, and then one has to look at the whole subject of investment planning for various goals. Do you also need to scale down your goals? Do you need to cut down on some of the expenses? Fortunately, this entire lockdown phase of roughly 5 months has taught us that what we thought we needed a few months back, many of those things we really don't need. So to that extent, now you look at do an assessment of the situation, and take a fresh guard. If I come back to the game of cricket, you take a fresh guard, and now you start building your inning all over again. Somebody may say that oh, that's fine for a 25-30-year-old person, but what do I do if I'm already 60-65? Well, the chances are, and if you've done a reasonably good job, then your investments are not that badly impacted negatively if you had enough provision for your expenses through fixed income instruments. So to that extent, you have enough ammunition for that survival phase, and then the rest of the period can be easily planned.
Right. Now we come to a new subject basically. I mean, with times changing times, the people's ideas of retirement are also changing. So in India, people used to retire at 60, 65 years of age, and now people are already considering early retirement across the world also, and now in India also, a lot of people I know also they want to retire early. In their early 40s, in their late 40s, or even in their early 50s, but not later than that. So in Indian context, Mr. Subramaniam, how can someone plan an early retirement, and what are the things they should keep in mind? And is it even wise in India to to retire early?
I have very strong views on early retirement. And first, I think men should ask their wives whether they want their husbands to retire, because it means more husband and less money, and that's, I think, is a horrible combination for most of the women. So first of all, you need your family's permission to retire early, and that you will not get. So that's out. Secondly, I don't see why you should retire early, because if you think there is enough activity to be done, you can do it from 60 to 110. If you're going to live till 110, you're going to live 50 years. Most Indian men have no hobbies. So what will they do after they retire? So there are two ways of retirement. One is a push retirement, that the company is pushing you out. And second is a pull retirement, that your hobbies are pulling you out. If it is a pull retirement, at least you're doing it positively. If it's a push retirement, you will not even admit that you are being pushed out. You will come home and tell your wife, "No, I'm going to trade in equities." And that's the best way to ruin your retirement chances, whatever it is. So I don't think Most Indian men are capable of retiring early. Once when they are tired or their boss has shouted at them, they say, "Aaj main retire hone wala hu." What they want is a 3-day break, not a 30-year break. So they have to be realistic about what they can afford and what they can't afford. And most Indian men whose portfolios I see, they suddenly think, "Oh, I got 2 crores, I can retire." That's bullshit. You will need much more than 2 crores to retire. So if you have not put together that corpus, yes, if you have done some business of your own, or if you have been lucky enough to get ESOPs, etc., and you have created the corpus, then you can retire on your own. But far more importantly, then you need hobbies, etc., to be able to retire on your own and be useful around the house, right from buying vegetables to cutting vegetables. कुछ तो करना चाहिए, या तो वो बोर हो जाएगा, अपनी बीवी की जान खाएगा. So practically, to put together that much of money, because you start earning at the age of 25 if you've done your MBA or CA or something, and you will want to retire at 50. That's just 25 years in which you have to put together a corpus for buying a house, taking care of parents, children's education, and your own retirement. Chief, you need to have a fabulous salary and tremendous ability to live like a monk and invest that money wisely to be able to create a corpus. I don't see too many people being able to do that. So stop dreaming, get realistic. लगे रहो, 65 साल में रिटायर हो जाओगे तो अच्छी बात है, सिर्फ 35 साल घर में बैठना पड़ेगा.
Right, that's an interesting view. But I'm talking about millennials, not people who are already in their 30s or late 30s or 40s. I'm talking about people in their early 20s who want to maybe we should not call it retirement. They want that they should not do a job for money. Their money needs are met, and they can do something else entirely. Something that they like, or something they can switch their career and don't have to depend on their jobs for the money. So from that perspective, do you have any any insight from that perspective?
No, this is very romantic. Now, for example, somebody who has been doing SIP for 7 years is seeing a negative return because of Corona. No, the guy who's doing SIP, at least if he has his job, he knows that once the Corona thing is sorted out, maybe the SIP will come up in value. Think of the guy who's 34 years of age, who left his job to do a startup. He's now 42 years and he's seen all his money wiped out. His employees have left him, or he has had to give them up. It's not been so easy for the entrepreneur. In fact, I think the entrepreneur is in a worse shape than the employee, because the employee can at least hope that, once the virus is sorted out, he could get back his job. So is it practical? No, it's not practical. But what happens when husband and wife both are earning and earning well, and they have in their younger age invested money? And also remember, this generation has one advantage, that they got parental support. So if the parents are giving them a house and things like that, they are not providing for any of those things, and they decide not to have children, then there is more money available for retirement. But if you are going to buy a house in the metros and have to educate 2 children, I seriously wonder how will a person work at 25 and retire at 50. It's very ambitious, and so he will take greater risk and maybe fall flat. So it's very difficult, not impossible, but you should have, like I said, you should have got ESOP in good, well-managed companies. You should have in cash and invested, saved, etc. So yes, there are a few people who can do it, but I don't think they're watching the program.
Yeah, that's an interesting view, and I'm sure if somebody is planning for their retirement, they will really think this through and only take a decision after taking all these factors into account. I'm sure this will be a helpful advice, bitter advice, but helpful advice for those who are actually planning to do that, or who fantasize about doing that, as you said. We have some audience questions also, but before that, I will ask one question to Mr. Rao, because we have talked about most of the aspects of retirement. But what are some common mistakes that people make in their early life, or even not that early life, but that affects their post-retirement well-being? So, what do you have to offer for them?
I think Vishal, early life is like, as Subra said, sometimes you will be in a fantasy that I want to retire. There's an ambition, aspiration, and you don't plan for it, the first part. And second, you think of retirement, but you will postpone, plan for retirement, plan for that, and you delay that. I mean, starting the corpus, even a 5 years delay is costing you too high. One, people are not funding it right, not saving it on time. and they are postponing it. And the third belief, most of us in Indian context, it so happens is my generation, next generation will take care of my retirement. Why should I worry? And that's the biggest mistake they will have. And I keep telling, even for my own son, I will say, I am not going to be your emergency fund, nor you are going to be my retirement fund. I think we should not depend on too much, and one we need to plan. And the third one is like, when you are putting your retirement money, you are not planning it properly. Like either it's asset allocation or investing, right? There are various risks on the retirement. Like one post-retirement, there is another issue. People will, they have their withdrawal rates are always high. They won't take their inflation into account, as we discussed earlier, or their spending is too high. And things under your control, things not under your control. I think, as Amit said, COVID was not under our control, but what is under your control is how you can have a frugal living, which Kiran was talking earlier, and how you can do. I think these are the common mistakes if you can avoid. And what you need to do is you can have those checklists. Checklists can be one, how you can start it today, don't postpone further. Second is how you can automate your savings. Don't look at your retirement account, let it happen automatically. And third, just decide when you are sitting with your financial planner, what is the corpus you need it, and how long you want to, and when to start, and what is that your corpus need to get a return. And then we call this as a 3-bucket strategy. Like your next 1 to 2 years money, you put it in the liquid one, and maybe next 2 to 4 years money, or 5 years money, you put it in the second bucket, which is a rising regular income, not just regular income, which could be a hybrid funds kind of it, and where you can park it. And the last one, the equity market may have volatile. Equity market is volatile, and there is a period of return, high return, period of low return, and period of no return. And if you bucket that and park your money above 5 years corpus into those equity bucket, then I think your retirement, not only you are avoiding the mistakes, you are going on the right side, and it is like you are going to live your life post retirement. It's like it's not the what age you are retiring, but at what income you are retiring is the most important part. If one keep that in mind, I'm sure the retirement is not only going to be comfortable, it is going to be a rich, and it is going to be a mindful.
Right. Thank you so much. We have a lot of audience questions. Let's take a few of them. We have 15-20 minutes. So first question, I think I'll ask Ms. Tilang to answer this. Shivu Singh asks that what role can a homemaker play in mindful retirement planning?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. So let me give an analogy. So I think a woman, a homemaker especially, I would say that she's like a thread which strings the pearls together to make a beautiful necklace. So it is unnoticed, it is underappreciated, but it is essential, it is very crucial. So while a homemaker, when the husband is extremely busy with his job or his career progression, she is the one who's binding the rest of the factors, binding the family, taking care of the kids' education, taking care of managing the relationships, the social connects. So that is a very important factor which she plays. And after the retirement, she can also help her husband out to actually ease into these things, because he will probably in all likelihood be away from all these connections, and the wife can play a very important role in getting him, easing him into these newer roles. But another important thing is that in taking care of the we, she should not forget about the me. So her individuality is very necessary, that she doesn't lose her individuality. So while she is taking care of the household, she also needs to take care of her own interests. She should have her own circle of friends, so that her stability of mind is also there. So like psychologists say that, if you are counseling somebody, you need to be counseled by somebody else, because you need to keep your own sanity. So in a similar manner, the woman of the house also needs to, have her own circle beyond the immediate circle of her family and her relationship. So I think it's a very important role that she plays. And also another fact that I've noticed is most women ignore the finance part of, managing the whole picture. So that should not be ignored. That can be very, very expensive mistake if things go wrong. Not assuming that, things will go wrong for everybody, but in case it goes wrong, if she's not aware, it can be a disaster for her.
Right. Thank you so much. We also have a question from Mr. S. Datta. He's 55 years old, and he wants to know that with the salary of around 1.1 lakh per month, what should be his strategy for retirement? He has some mutual funds also and PPF, some investment in PPF also. He has not disclosed those details, but he asked what should be his strategy for retirement. Any one of you can take this question.
Yeah, so let me let me tell you what corpus he will need. At the age of 55, he will know how much he's spending per annum. For a minute, let us assume he's spending about 5 lakhs per annum. So 5 lakhs per annum would mean by the time he's 60, he should be spending about 10 lakhs per annum. I'm assuming that inflation is high or some other expenses have added up. Just for calculation purposes, we're making it simpler. So if his expenses at the age of 60 are about 10 lakhs, he has to target about 40 times that, which is about 4 crores is what he will require for his retirement. Now, depending on his salary and all, he may have about 1 crore coming from PF, and if he's got some superannuation, that will give him a smallish pension of maybe 20-25,000. And plus, he has to have something, another 2-3 crores of his own money. Apart from a house, and assuming that the loans have been paid off, he should have about approximately 4 crores for it. And so whatever money he can invest to reach that corpus, and that corpus should remain untouched for other goals like son wanting some help or daughter wanting some help. Nothing for that he will be able to provide. So this is for his day-to-day living. He will need this. So 40 times his annual expenses is what he will need.
Right.
Rishabh, I would like to just add to what Subra was mentioning, and a lot of times this is something that I've experienced that people talk about their income and their assets, which is where this question also said that so much is his income, and these are the roughly so much are the is the money invested or where the money is invested. The question of investment is not so much about how much you are earning. The question is all about how much you are going to spend for something. A lot of viewers would have heard this a point called financial goals. Now, all these financial goals are nothing but expenses one is going to incur sometime in future. So, from that point of view, my request to all the viewers would be: whenever you think of the question of investing, it is all about the money to be spent at some time in future. So always focus on that expense amount, and that's where Subra took the discussion to assuming the annual expenses of this person. Yeah. So the moment you start with that point, then the answers can be proper.
Right. Thank you so much for adding this insight. We have another question from Mr. Vasu Bhandaru. He asks that how to save more in general, why people with high salaries are getting into credit traps and are unable to come out. Any suggestion for these such people?
So I'll go here and go back, take the thread from the answers which I just gave. Your financial goals are expenses in future. So essentially, what you are doing is trying to strike a balance between today's expenses and tomorrow's expenses. Make a choice. Do you want to live a life today so that you got a miserable life tomorrow, or you want to live a lavish life tomorrow so that you got a miserable life today? You don't want either. Find out a proper balance between today and tomorrow. And I would like to quote two very nice Bollywood movies. One is Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, where Hrithik Roshan wanted to retire at 40. So he said, let me slog right now. No fun in life, only work, accumulate money so that after 40 I can enjoy. And then the heroine of the movie tells him that, what's the guarantee that you live till 40? And you're worried about living after 40. So that's one extreme. The other extreme was a movie called Tara Rampam, where Saif Ali Khan, a race car driver, was living lavishly and borrowing money to fund that life. And suddenly one fine day he meets with an accident and the income stops. And he had to compromise on his lifestyle. So that's the other extreme. The real life has to be between the two. It's neither Hrithik Roshan in Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara nor Saif Ali Khan in Tara Rampam. We all have to live somewhere in between. So always strike a balance. And the moment you start doing that, the focus once again comes on the expenses that you are incurring. I'm not giving a chance to Subra. I'm simply borrowing from what he typically says. If it is not required, switch off your AC. If it is not required, don't buy an SUV, settle with a sedan. So there are a lot of places where you can actually and actively cut down on certain expenses, and it still doesn't mean that you don't enjoy your life. You still continue to enjoy your life, but strike a balance.
Right, that balance is surely important. Uh, the next question, I think it's an interesting question from the perspective of today's times. Mr. or Miss Kiran C, I think she asks that considering current uncertainty and higher valuations, should an average investor in India go with index investing like developed countries, then creating a complex portfolio of stocks, mutual funds, NPS, ULIPs, PPF, etc.? Any one of you can take this question. Whoever is willing to, answer this question.
So yeah, let me take this up. Indexing as a solution to uncertainty and high valuations is not the right way to do it, because index, the construct of the index is because the free float market cap of a particular stock has gone beyond a certain, it's the top stocks in the market. So that is how the index is created. So higher valuations you will not be able to solve with indexing. Uncertainty will not go away with indexing because you are still investing in stocks. Stocks are volatile, stock prices are volatile. So those two factors will not be taken care of. Now, where indexing helps is probably taking out the bias of managing a particular fund. So if you're looking at an index fund, it will take out the fund manager bias. So the fund manager will not have his expertise built into managing the corpus of money that you're giving him to manage through the fund. So that can be taken out. Now again, indexing, you cannot compare to maybe a PPF or a ULIP. Now let me talk of PPF. PPF is basically a fixed income instrument. So that has a different risk and return parameter. The risk is fixed and the return is guaranteed for a shorter period of time. But definitely it will not be impacted by the volatility and the uncertainty. Again, if you look at ULIP, it is a different animal altogether. It's a combination of insurance and investment, which generally is not a good idea to do. So the whole point is when you are creating an investment portfolio for yourself, you cover your risks through insurance, which has to be pure insurance like term plan. You look at various buckets, various baskets. You can't put everything into equity. You have to put some in equity, some in fixed income. Again, fixed income PPF is a 15-year product, so your money gets locked in, right? So if you have an emergency, you cannot withdraw from PPF. So for emergency, you might need a fixed deposit or you might need a debt mutual fund. So there are various things which are utilized for different needs. So you need to have a balance. You cannot have everything, by going to one particular product.
Mr. Ram Bhandari, he asks how much corpus one should aim for if they are working in private sector without pension benefit. I think Mr. Subramaniam would be keen to answer this.
Yeah, like I said, till your age of 50 or 55, don't bother too much about what is the amount. Just target something like 1 million US dollars and see where you have reached. Only by the age of 50 or 55, you know how much will be your expenses at the age of 60. So multiply that by 40. Like I said, if 10 lakhs is your annual expenses, you will need 4 crores. Here again, we are assuming that there is nothing dramatic going to happen. He's not going to be bedridden for 3 years, or he's not going into coma. We're making an assumption that normal life, you could live another 35-40 years, providing for inflation, you should eat 40x, right? But please remember a few things. You do not know how long you will live. You do not know how much returns you will get. You do not know how much you will spend. You do not know how much of medical expenses, hospitalization expenses you will incur. So all unknown variables, and with that you're planning. This is called playing blind. You have no clue, but you know that the number that you require is big. Now look at it this way. If you have a journey which you have to undertake and you need 500 rupees for doing that journey, 500 rupees is what the ticket is going to cost you. You will never start on the journey with just 500 rupees. You will start with maybe 1500 or 2000 depending on your personality. Maybe you'll carry a debit card and a credit card just in case you need more money, right? That is how you start on a journey. So if your planner tells you you need 4 crores, you may be more comfortable only if you have 6-7 crores. You may not be very comfortable having exactly 4 crores. What happens if you live till 95 instead of 90? You need to be prepared for all those things, right? So God does not tell you how long you're going to live. So if you live like Dilip Kumar, you need a pension. If you're going to die like Sanjeev Kumar, you need the term insurance, right? One died at 47, one is alive at 96. So it's very difficult to estimate because that one thing God doesn't tell you. So you need to prepare, and you will need to over prepare rather than under prepare.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone, for these insightful, views on retirement. I think we have covered vast range of issues when it comes to retirement, and our viewers would, really get a lot of ideas, and they will be able to plan their retirement. Of course, they will need to consult some financial advisors, but I think they will get a lot of insights into planning their retirement. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.